Okay, so I've been thinking a lot about graduation, where I came from the School of Ministry, and been here for 4 years. Cannot believe it. Almost 4 years. November it'll be 4 years. And I've been thinking I've been through a lot in the past 4 years. With ups and downs, when we first get to revival, when we first get to the church or get to the school, people warn you saying, "Oh, there's all these ups and downs in revival," and then you are like, "Oh, okay," and you're like, "I have no idea what they're talking about when they say ups and downs in revival," but in the reality, it does happen, ups and downs in revival. 6 months I was in, since I've been here, a lot of you guys know, Mom passed. So Mom passed, and it was hard for me. It was very hard for me, but I was in here for 6 months, and I got all of this life into me. I got all of this good stuff and learned to experience the presence of God for the first time, really. And that became my stability. And I knew that whatever I was going to go through in life, that I was going to be able to conquer it. And so as soon as she passed, I had my hard times and my down times with it. But as soon as she died, I realized, you know what? I am more than a conqueror. And I know where my help comes from. I know where my strength comes from, and it's from the Lord. That's the first thing that I declared in my life. That is the first thing that I declared in my family's life, is I am more than a conqueror, and I can push through these struggles. Because a lot of times I think with struggles in life, we think that we have to wail and wall and just soak in these struggles. But the thing of the struggle is, when you're going through this struggle, as you're moving through these struggles and the Lord is becoming your strength, it's when you come out of that struggle is when the Lord gets the glory, when the Lord gets the honor, and you become stronger. Your character is developed, and who you are is developed. And but I think people think it's bad to go through struggles. It's not necessarily bad. It's what you do with it, So there's an example. I really liked 1 Samuel chapter 30, talking about David and the Amalekites. In verse, let's see, I think I can start off with, so anyway, maybe I'll just tell you before, kind of what happened before, kind of the prep work. So David and his army, they left camp, if you will. They left camp. Then there was these people that came into their camp, and they stole everything that they had, everything they owned. They stole, their livestock, they took their women, they took their children. So then in verse, so David and his men reached Ziklag on the third day. Now the Amalekites had raided the Negev and Ziklag. They had attacked Ziklag and burned it, and had taken captive the women and all who were in it, both young and old. They killed none of them, but carried them off as soon as they went on their way. When David and his men came to Ziklag, they found it destroyed by fire, and their wives and sons and daughters taken captive. So David and his men wept until they had no strength left to weep. David's 2 wives had been captive. David was greatly distressed because the men were talking of stoning him. Each was bitter in spirit because of his sons and daughters. But here's the good part. Here's the part where the strength of the Lord comes in. David found strength. David found strength in God, despite of this distress, despite of how he was feeling at this moment. Just think, everything that he had, everything that he owned was taken from him. But that verse says, David found strength in the Lord. And there's power in that. There's power when there's strength. When your strength comes from the Lord. Because it's not from ourselves. I can't find strength in myself when I go through things, but it's from strength. From the strength of the Lord. So verse 7 says, then David said, I always want to say Abathar or whatever, I don't know how to say it, but it reminds me of, what's that, that one cartoon, that blue guy? Oh, Avatar? Avatar. So every time I see this name, I'm like, that's not Avatar. So David said to Abathar, the priest, the son of Elimelech, bring me the ephod. And then David inquired of the Lord, and he said, shall I pursue this raiding party? Will I overtake them? The Lord answered him, pursue them. You will certainly overtake them and succeed and rescue. But why? Because his help and his strength was from the Lord. David and the 600 men with him came to the ravine, where some stayed behind, for 200 men were too exhausted to cross the ravine. I wonder what they were going through, though, you know? Like, the 200 men, like, they had to have women and children there, too. So it's like, I'll just let them go conquer the enemy, you know? So I don't want to go, that's kind of a whole nother sermon, but but I was just thinking, like, reflecting on that, like, 200 men left. They just stayed back. They didn't even pursue. So let's actually jump down to David talking to this guy who was going to lead him into the enemy's camp. So this guy led David down to where they were at, and they were scattered. The enemies were scattered all over the countryside. They're eating and drinking and reveling because of the great amount of plunder they had taken from the land of the Philistines and from Judah. David fought them from dusk until the evening of the next day, and none of them got away, except 400 young men who rode off on camels and fled. David recovered everything the Amalekites had taken, everything that the enemy had stolen from him, because his help came from the Lord, because he realized that he was more than a conqueror through Jesus. He got everything back. And when God restores things in our life, he doesn't just restore the things that are lost, but he gives us back more than what we had before. So nothing was missing. Young or old, boy or girl, plunder or anything else that had taken. David brought everything back. He took all of his flocks and herds, and his men drove them ahead in the other livestock, saying, "This is David's plunder." I guess I can end with that. So David came into the enemy's camp and took back everything that was stolen. He didn't wallow and wail, kind of like what we kind of feel, we kind of get comfortable in wallowing and wailing and weeping over things that we've lost in life, whether it's finances, whether we have like sickness in our body, or a family member just dies. I'll say it automatically. Where a family dies of disease, or a family member dies unexpectedly. But we don't have to be in that state. We don't have to stay in that stage, because we know where our help comes from. We know that we are more than conquerors when we go through trials, when we go through tribulations, when we go through struggles. We know, and we have the power. We have the power to overcome all of those things.
Right.
We have the power to overcome any battle. We have the power to overcome any struggle in life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's great, because now I can live in freedom. Now I can live in that freedom, and now I don't have to be like, how am I gonna get through this? How am I gonna provide for my family? How am I going to get through this struggle? But now I can live in freedom. Spirit of the Lord, there is freedom. So when we're walking by the Spirit of the Lord, there's freedom, and we don't have to worry, we don't have to fear. And a lot of times, like what you were saying earlier, you get like nervous, like fear bounds us from things, like you were saying, and we don't have to live in that fear,
Right.
It's just really cool. We don't have to live there.
Yeah.
And not that when it comes upon us, we're like, oh, we're sinners and we're horrible people. Oh my gosh, why am I being fearful right now? But we don't have to walk in it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
We don't have to walk in it. So, a lot of times, even before I moved here too, I had like that whole like, Jesus, I'm just holding on to you. But he's like, Amanda, I've given you the sword of the Spirit. We have the empowerment to do things, and to really change the status of what we're going through, to change situations. So how do you become a conqueror? That's what I was asking. I was like, okay, the Lord says that we are more than conquerors in the New Testament. We are more than conquerors. What does that look like? Well, how do you become a conqueror? Not by avoiding the struggles, not by avoiding circumstances that come. You're like, how sometimes people say out of sight, out of mind? It's not about avoiding it, It's not about avoiding the battle, but it's about triumphing over them. Because we are more than conquerors. Just like David did. Not that weeping and wailing is bad, but joy comes in the morning. And just know that where your help comes from, where your strength comes from, that you can overcome anything in life that comes at you, you can overcome, because God has given you the tools. God has given you the tools.
Yeah.
And how important this word is. I think sometimes maybe we kind of maybe diminish really the power of the word, because the living word is living and it's life, and it's active today in our lives, and it's for us to use. It's a tool. So we have the power to overcome. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah.
Woo!